So which iPhone to choose? Of course, this year we got the iPhone 13 series, and I have been debating with myself whether I should get the big Pro Max version or should just get the smaller one, normal Pro one here. Because this year, of course, battery life have improved quite significantly, not only on the bigger one here by 2.5 hours, but also with the smaller Pro version here. So I really wanted to try the smaller variant this year. I've always gone for the bigger variant ever since the iPhone 6s, but I really feel like the big one, even though it's nice with the big canvas here and the bigger screen, I feel like it can be a little unhandy at times, unwieldy, especially one-handed use. And the normal Pro here is definitely a lot better in terms of one-hand ability. So I ended up just picking up the Pro variant, so the non-max variant first. And I really like the one-hand ability. It is very easy to reach across the screen, going back, and also easier to reach on the top of the screen, go into control center, and so on and so on. So much better one-hand ability. Of course, it is smaller in footprint, 6.1 inch over the 6.7 inch on the bigger boy here. So it also is quite a bit smaller when you actually have it in your pocket, which is also one thing I found sometimes it can be a little big in your pocket having a big phone sticking up there. And also use the S21 Ultra. And considering we got the battery life improvements on the regular Pro series, I was kind of curious to try it out because that's always been one of the biggest hindrances. I really like the extreme battery life of the Max series, especially my 11 Pro Max, which was one of the best batteries I had ever in a smartphone. Not just an iPhone, but just in a smartphone in general, at least a high-end smartphone. But I must say I was a little bit disappointed actually when I was daily driving my my 13 Pro non-max variant here. It definitely is quite an improvement compared to previous years, and it's definitely not bad at all in terms of battery life. But you see those YouTubers do that battery life comparison, but they only really use Wi-Fi to stream, and it's not really apples to apples comparison of a real day in a life, at least for me personally. So once I started connecting like my smartwatch, my Garmin watch that uses an app called Garmin Connect. Of course, I use AirPods, Bluetooth streaming, music on 4G, 5G, wherever there is 5G here in my country. And also, of course, I have Bluetooth connected whenever I'm in my car doing Bluetooth calls through my car stereo system. And I just found that the battery life was degrading or was not quite up there with my 11 Pro Max or even my S21 Ultra. Yeah, did disappoint me a little bit. I was hoping to get something close to at least the 12 Pro Max or the 11 Pro Max. But after 3.5 hours of screen on time, of course, I've streamed some audio over 4G through my Bluetooth headphones. I've had my smartwatch here, my Garmin watch connected via Bluetooth the whole day, get all my notifications through my watch. And of course, whenever I'm in my car, I will, like I said, also be connected with Bluetooth. And after 3-4 hours, when I got home in the evening time, I was down to around 50%, 54% of battery life, which is definitely not bad at all, but it just doesn't really give me the confidence that I can go throughout the whole day. This was in around 6 or 7 in the evening, so I really want a battery life where I don't have to top it up through the day. I can just charge it overnight, bring it along with me, even though if I'm going out at night, I will still have battery life enough to get home late at night or the early next morning without having to charge off my phone. So yeah, battery life was great, but I did expect a little bit more. And in terms of the screen size, 6.1 inch is not exactly a small screen, but if you're used to like a 6.8 inch here on my S21 Ultra, or even coming from the iPhone 11 Pro Max, which has a 6.5 inch screen, this does feel a little bit cramped, even though, like I said, one-hand ability is quite a bit better. I can reach over to the left side of the phone and of course swipe back for that back motion, which is kind of hard to do in a Max series without stretching my fingers or getting a little uncomfortable. So in terms of one-hand ability, the smaller screen is definitely nice, but I just felt like it was a little too cramped. Again, coming from the bigger phones, all of the icons were smaller, all of the like on-screen buttons was a little smaller, and the on-screen keyboard as well. I found that I just typed wrong more frequently on the non-Max variant. And one of the issues I've always had with the bigger phones ever since the XS Max, where I have to swipe from the left side going back. I kind of have to adjust my grip, getting a little uncomfortable, like reaching all the way over to the edge of the phone here. That's one area where I really feel like Apple could do a little bit better, like Samsung is doing. Even bigger screen, even though it is bigger, it's a little bit taller, but it's a little bit narrower as well. But you can also swipe from the right side to the left to go back, and you can also do it like on the iPhone swipe back if you go on the left edge of the screen and swipe back. That's not something you can do even on the big phone, and you cannot enable that for some reason. It would have been nice to just been able to swipe back here on the right side of the screen. Much more convenient when you have your finger right here already, instead of having going all the way across the screen. I really hope that's something Apple will bring in the future updates, just the ability to like set that up so you can have back button on each side of the screen. Don't think they will do so, but you can always hope, like on the S21 Ultra. So I think Samsung and Android in general just does a little bit better job handling bigger screen phones. Again, bringing me back to the smaller one here. But I felt like just everything was a little bit more cramped on the smaller phone, even though reachability is definitely improved. I just found the screen a little bit claustrophobic. Of course, not as immersive when I'm watching YouTube content or other content on the screen. Like I said, smaller buttons and icons, and also smaller text when I'm just browsing the web. I want to read something, a book or a PDF document. Everything is just smaller, so I just have to keep the phone a little bit closer to my face, or I have to pinch my eyes a little bit if I'm going a little further away from my face. I do have perfect eye vision, so it's not my eye vision that is kind of not working properly. It is just the text size is just smaller on this phone. Of course, I know you can go into settings and you can set the text to be bigger, but then you also lose a lot of real estate on the screen, which means you can only show a certain number of characters on the screen at a time. So if you enlarge the text, it will just show bigger characters, but it will show less characters on the screen in total. So you have to swipe even more. And yeah, I just find that a little too claustrophobic for my use case and also for my user experience. So I just ended up at my local Apple reseller here in my country, comparing the 13 Pro that I already bought to the Max variant, side by side. And immediately I just felt at home on the Max variant, even though it was bigger. And of course I have to stretch a little bit more with my finger, a little more finger gymnastics with this one here. To get around, I just felt much more at home with the bigger screen, bigger icons, bigger text, and so on. So yeah, I immediately ended up getting the Max variant, and I actually just finished setting it up here. The Max variant, in my country at least, is very hard to get. They only really had it in stock in 512 gigabyte storage in this gray variant. I really like the gray. This is the color I would have chosen, but I would probably just have went for the 256 gigabyte of storage. Yeah, I have to pay a little bit extra for storage I probably will never use. So I'm quite interested to try out the battery life. I'm hoping for quite a bit better battery life when I'm starting to push the phone, streaming, and of course connect all my Bluetooth devices to it. And as well as, of course, a bigger screen for a more immersive experience. This is the biggest screen I've had in an iPhone. I did not go for the 12 Pro Max. I still kept my old 11 Pro Max for that generation, and that was fine for me, but this is definitely a little more immersive. I feel like, of course, text and icons and the keyboard is much easier to type on, and of course much easier to read the text. Although, yeah, like I said, you have to do that little bit of finger gymnastics. I really hope Apple will do some improvement to that, maybe even make it at the screen a little more narrow, like on Samsung phones, and just a little bit taller. That would be quite nice. If my 13 Pro was my only phone, I think I would be pretty happy with the screen size, and of course I will just get used to the smaller icons and text and so on. But considering I also have an S21 Ultra, and this is a phone I plan to keep in the future and just switch between an iPhone and an Android phone, which is the way I like to roll. I like to have a foot in each camp, and you just immediately notice that it is significantly smaller. So that's probably also some of the reason why I have a hard time actually getting used to the smaller screen. So the switching between phone is much easier, much more comfortable if you have two big phones, and the screen size is pretty similar between the two here. A little bit wider here and a little bit narrower here, but taller there and a little bit lower here. If I didn't have another big phone, I definitely would probably just keep my 13 Pro. Other than issues picking the right size for the newer 13 series of phones, I was a little underwhelmed when I actually saw the Apple keynote. I was actually debating with myself whether I should really go and get one of the 13 Pro series. And initially I thought I would just keep my S21 Ultra as my main device for another year and see what Apple comes out with in 2022, because I am a little bit disappointed that they still use USB 2.0 in forms of their Lightning connector. You know what also uses USB 2.0? This iPhone 3GS that came out in 2009. This is a very old phone, but even worse, the Nokia E50, for instance, also used USB 2.0 that came out in 2006 with their own little proprietary pop port here. And even phones that came out before this one here also uses USB 2.0. So that's kind of a hindrance and disability with the newer phones, especially in the new bigger storage variants. And if you plan to use like ProRes and transferring videos or content off of this phone here to either your Mac or your Windows computer, it is going to be very, very slow. And that's one thing I noticed when I had my 11 Pro Max. I did get the 512GB variant of that as well, because I did plan to use it in between my other cameras for YouTube content. But I just ended up not using that because of the slow USB 2.0 protocol with that Lightning connector. And I found AirDrop just to be too unreliable and slow for me. So yeah, if you want to get content off your phone, I'll probably not really recommend this one here. It's kind of ridiculous that Apple is calling this a Pro device with such a slow USB protocol. It's like buying a very expensive, very fast sports car, but you can only drive it at bicycling speed. So I don't really understand why they're not just able to throw in, even if it's still using Lightning port, then just make it USB 3.0, even though if I have to pay for a separate cable to get that fast speed, I don't really care. That's just a big bottleneck, and one of the reasons why I'm not really sure I'm going to keep this phone, because I know next year, 2022, 2023, maybe Apple will put the fastest USB port ever on an iPhone, either through the MagSafe. They will make their own proprietary stuff, which I kind of think they will do because they are making so much money on the Lightning connector. So that's kind of a big reason, I think, why they still kept that around. But I hope they will just throw in USB Type-C so we can actually get content off this phone much faster. Just 5 gigabits per second would be okay. 10 gigabits would be even better. Maybe even Thunderbolt. Who knows? They are on their Pro iPad, so this should be possible to get that on the phones as well. But if you plan to use this for your video device using ProRes video, for instance, like 500 gigabyte here, transferring that to your computer, it will take hours to get the content off here, and even slower if you use AirDrop. That's really a big issue in my opinion. And I don't understand why more people are not really talking about this. USB 2.0 in a Pro device in 2021. And very expensive Pro device. I don't know what's wrong with Apple, really. Come on, get in the game, god damn it. If I don't use this as a YouTube camera, I still find the camera upgrade to be quite nice for just, normal family and friends photo and video sharing through iMessage or all of the other social media apps. I use Telegram. Just sharing images is fine, and of course just keep it on here and AirPlay them to my Apple TV and so on. Will be just fine. And for smaller videos, like for some B-roll, maybe 10, 20, 30 seconds videos, I think it's okay with USB 2.0, even though it is rather slow. It is not too slow to get the smaller video formats off there. But ProRes, I'm definitely not going to use this on this phone here. And in terms of the camera, we do got that new ultra-wide camera that can do macro photography, which is a feature I really have been wanting in an iPhone for quite some time now. And you also get the more light-sensitive regular camera, as well as, of course, the ultra-wide camera is also more light-sensitive now. And of course, you do get a 3x optical telephoto camera at 77mm right now, but it has lost quite a bit of light sensitivity, so it's not really the best in lower lighting environment now compared to previous iPhones. But in great lighting condition, it's definitely nicer to have that 3x optical zoom. So yeah, the camera is definitely an upgrade I've been waiting for. Like I said, especially the macro photography. I do not care at all about any of the new video features. I know they make a big deal about the new video modes where you can like switch between focal points and you can have that fake backlight with blur I don't really care about that. I never really cared about portrait mode either. Something that doesn't work 100% of the time, I'm not really interested in. Definitely not something I personally would use. So nice stuff, and I know people really like it and find it very useful. So definitely it is a matter of taste. But the photography aspect of this phone, I'm looking forward to get out there and take some macro photography and also get much better low light performance, leaving the shutter open for much shorter period of time. So I can take indoor shots without having too much motion blur with that low light settings. Definitely a big upgrade for me. And of course, not to mention that Pro Motion display. It has been a long time coming. I feel like Samsung is doing it a little bit better. Feels much smoother and faster on the Samsung, whereas iPhone kind of held onto their like slower animations, but it is definitely much more smooth, or much smoother than previous iPhones. And I really like that as well. Feels very nice and buttery smooth. So yeah, I wish you could kind of tweak the transitions a little bit, or maybe the scroll speed a little bit, so it would be a little bit faster. But other than that, I really like Pro Motion display. And yeah, that's also one of the reasons I wanted the iPhone. I would definitely not have gone for an iPhone if it still had stuck with their 60 Hertz monitors, especially when I am already using 120 Hertz on my S21 Ultra, going between my S21 Ultra and my 11 Pro Max. It was just a pain because you feel that 60 FPS just so laggy and slow, and on top of that, the Apple slow like transitioning and scrolling speeds is just felt quite a bit slower, even though it was still quite a fast phone. So all in all, if you like me have been debating with yourself whether you should get the Max or the non-Max Pro iPhone 13, if you're used to the Max, I would say just go for that one. Even though the battery life is significantly improved on the normal Pro model, if you're used to that bigger screen, it is kind of a downgrade, I think. Also, when you consider that you got the new Pro Motion display, you should definitely consider getting the biggest canvas, of course, to enjoy that nice new display. It is a fantastic, fantastic display. You're kind of losing out a little bit on the smaller iPhone, I feel like, but definitely both great phones. Only reason really I think you should get the non-Max variant is if you already have the 11 Pro Max or 12 Pro Max or even the XS Max or 10S Max, and you find it too heavy, too bulky, and not comfortable to use in your hand, and you haven't really gotten used to the bigger screen. This year with the 13 Pro, I believe is the best year to get the smaller one, because you are not really sacrificing anything in terms of camera quality. The only thing really is the bigger screen and the battery life. So kind of a nice phone, but if you really like those bigger screens, just go for that one, in my opinion. Also, if you get the Max, of course, the battery will last longer, not only in terms of battery life from day to day if you're just using the phone, but also, of course, when you're charging your phone, you will probably not have drained the battery as much as on the regular Pro. So the battery durability in the long term should also, in theory, also last a little bit longer on the 13 Pro Max. So that's always also something to consider. If you are keeping your phone for several years, it should last quite a bit longer before it will actually degrade to a point where where Apple will slow down your phone. So both fantastic phones. I really like them. Other than the negatives I have talked about, I don't think you can go wrong with either one. But I am definitely looking forward to spend more time with my 13 Pro Max. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to keep it. The USB 2.0 protocol or speed is kind of close to a deal breaker for me. I will give it like 14 days, keep it in my pocket as my daily driver, and see how well it actually held up through that time. If the battery life is just amazing, and of course the nice screen and the cameras, I cannot really live without those, I will definitely keep it, but I have no problem really returning it and just use my S21 Ultra for the next year as my main device. I really like this phone. It is a fantastic phone, and I'm still going to keep it and switch between the two if I end up keeping my 13 Pro Max. So I will keep it for now, and I will do a follow-up review when I've actually spent more time with the 13 Pro Max. But that's pretty much it for this video. I hope to see you again in a future one. Until then, take care.